If I'm being honest, the first time I realized I hated her, it scared me. Not because she had done anything wrong to me, but because I couldn't explain why. My name is Nadia, and the truth is, I hated my colleague long before I ever had a reason. Have you ever looked at someone and felt a quiet anger rise in your chest? Not because they hurt you, but because everything about them seemed too steady, too composed, too right? That was how it started. Because she didn't actually do anything wrong, I couldn't insult her. I couldn't confront her. So I pretended around her. But inside me, every small success of hers felt like a reminder of my own weaknesses, and she never knew. Her name was Clara. Clara was the kind of woman who didn't try to impress anyone, and somehow still impressed everyone. She greeted you politely, did her work, and moved on, like someone who had nothing to prove. She needed no validation from anyone, yet received a lot of it. She never longed for acceptance, never chased friendships, yet the most respected people naturally deferred to her. She rarely spoke to anyone, yet responded with surprising warmth whenever someone spoke to her. She carried herself with a quiet assurance that made it seem as though she was always one step ahead. Some people wear confidence loudly. Clara wore hers quietly. She was calm, composed, unshaken. I told myself it was pride, but deep down I wondered if there was something special about her that I didn't understand. There was something else about Clara, something that punched the air out of my stomach. She was happy, not performative happiness, not attention-seeking happiness, but the kind that looked effortless, and that disturbed me deeply, because I was the one who mixed well with everyone. I laughed easily, joined conversations naturally, built relationships and thrived on connection. Yet I was restless inside. Clara, on the other hand, was often alone. While colleagues gathered in groups, shared lunches, and laughed loudly, she sat by herself, not cold, not bitter, just alone, and strangely content. That contradiction drove me crazy. How could someone who stood alone be so peaceful, while I, surrounded by people, felt unsettled? And the more I failed to understand it, the deeper my resentment grew. Because sometimes hatred is simply insecurity wearing armor. It started subtly. Managers called her name first, asked for her opinion, trusted her with sensitive, high-impact tasks. At first I searched for excuses. Maybe she knew someone. Maybe favoritism was involved. Maybe something unfair was happening. But there wasn't. It wasn't romance. It wasn't office politics. It wasn't personal relationships. The favoritism wasn't personal. It was professional. Clara was good. Not the kind of good that tries hard for attention, but the kind that quietly delivers excellence. She was precise, clear, reliable. When problems surfaced, she didn't panic. She solved them. When meetings dragged, she cut through the noise with clarity. She didn't just do her job. She protected the company's time, money, and reputation. And managers noticed. It wasn't unfair. It was earned. And that truth hurt more than any imagined injustice. I worked hard but needed reassurance. I double-checked but second-guessed myself. I waited for feedback while Clara anticipated outcomes. Where I reacted, she reasoned. Where I explained, she concluded. Where I needed direction, she offered solutions. Ordinarily, my head knew I should admire her, even learn from her, but my heart was too bitter to accept that truth, too hardened to let admiration grow, and that bitterness slowly turned into hatred. This is the part that tightens my chest, because I didn't just feel jealousy, I acted on it. In that moment, I wanted, just once, to pull her down to my level, to silence the voice reminding me that I wasn't enough beside her. There were smaller moments before the big one. Times our paths crossed in the corridor and she greeted me softly, and I looked past her as though she didn't exist. Times she asked a simple work question and I responded curtly, as though kindness from me was something she hadn't earned. I wanted her to feel it, to know, without words, that I didn't like her. Then came the bigger moment. We were working on a major deliverable. Something leadership would scrutinize closely. Clara had done a critical section, clean, logical, solid, the kind of work that quietly carries the entire document. And when I compiled the final version, I removed her name. Not to shout my resentment, but to erase her presence. When the manager reviewed the work, he paused. "This section is excellent," he said. "Who handled this?" Then he frowned. "Clara's name isn't here, but this feels like her work." The room fell silent. Clara looked at the screen, then at me. She knew. Our eyes met briefly. She didn't accuse me. She didn't correct him. She simply said calmly, "It's okay. The work matters more than the credit." That moment should have broken me, but jealousy is stubborn. 2 weeks later, my own work triggered a serious issue. A client flagged inconsistencies. Leadership escalated the matter. Legal and compliance were pulled in. This was no longer about embarrassment. It was about money, reputation, risk, and my job. The next morning, my manager called me in. He described what Clara had done, how she traced the issue back to its root, how she combed through records late into the night, how she identified the failure point before irreversible damage occurred. She proposed corrective steps, implemented safeguards, and stabilized the situation quietly. She didn't just fix a mistake, she saved the company, and she saved my job. "She never blamed you," my manager added. That was when my breath caught. Later, I asked Clara why. She looked at me gently and said, "Because the work matters, and because I've been there before." There was only one promotion slot that year. Everyone knew it should be Clara's. Then she stepped aside. She declined the promotion and recommended me instead. Days later, I asked her why. "My husband has cancer," she said softly. "He's been fighting quietly. Most days, I don't know how much time we have left." "When life starts taking the people you love," she continued, "you realize some battles are no longer worth fighting." In that moment, everything made sense. Her loneliness, her calm, her happiness. She wasn't happy because life was easy. She was happy because she chose not to let pain define her. That was when I broke. Because the woman I hated most had shown me who I was afraid to become. Happiness, I learned, is not given by circumstances. It is a choice, and that choice changed me forever.